Why pure finders? We're a disgusting game changer. I will pay you to pick up dog poop. No, I'm not even joking. This was a real job, and it secretly powered one of the biggest industries on the entire planet. In Victorian England, rich people loved showing off their fancy leather. But the secret to making that leather wasn't a futuristic workshop. It was found on the dirtiest streets in London, and it was collected by the most desperate people in the city. They were called pure finders, and their disgusting job was the hidden engine that literally built an empire. So today, we're going to uncover how picking up dog poop became one of the most important and disgusting jobs in history. The leather problem. Okay, to understand why this insane job existed, you only need to know one thing: leather. In the 19th century, before plastic, leather was everything, and I mean everything. It was used for shoes, bags, horse harnesses, and the millions of machine belts that kept the Industrial Revolution running. The demand was absolutely out of control. But making leather is one of the grossest things you can possibly imagine. You start with a raw animal hide, which is stiff, greasy, and smells exactly like you think it does. To turn this into usable leather, it had to be tanned. The first steps were insane. The hides would show up at factories, which were kept outside of town because they smelled so bad, still covered in blood. First, they'd soak them in salt water. Then they threw them into giant pits of stale pee to get the hair off, which they literally scraped off with huge knives. Even after all of that, you had a hide that would dry as hard as a rock. The real secret, the one step that separated cheap garbage from a super expensive luxury product, was a process called baiting. This is what finally made the hide soft. For centuries, tanners knew they needed something to make the leather soft, but their methods were gross and barely worked. But in the giant cities of Victorian England, they found a new, reliable, and totally disgusting solution right on the street. The disgusting solution. The secret ingredient that changed the entire world was dog poop. I'm not kidding. They literally called it pure, which is crazy because it was poop. Now, before you click away, there's actual science behind this. Dog poop is filled with special enzymes. When they mixed this pure with water, it created a powerful chemical bath. Workers would take these rock-hard leather hides and shove them into giant vats of this poop water, and the enzymes would immediately go to work, breaking down all the tough fibers. This process made the hides unbelievably soft, supple, and ready to be turned into luxury goods. And you will not believe this, but the name pure wasn't because it purified the leather. It came from an old word that just means to stink. It's the perfect name for this job. People had used bird droppings before, but dog poop was considered the absolute best for the highest quality leather. The workers had the insane job of rubbing this poop paste into the hides with their bare hands. The smell was so overpowering that these factories were legally forced into their own districts. It was a nasty, stinking business, but it made the beautiful leather everyone wanted. This created a huge problem. Where do you get tons and tons of dog poop? That's where our unlikely heroes come in. A day in the life of a pure finder. This job was so terrible, only the most desperate people in the world would do it. We're talking old people, sick people, even little kids. These were the pure finders. And the only reason we know about their lives is because this one guy, Henry Mayhew, followed them around and wrote down literally everything they did in his book, London Labor and the London Poor. A pure finder's day started the second the sun came up. They would walk the streets, staring at the ground, hunting for brown gold. Their tools were incredibly simple. Most just had a bucket. If they were rich, it had a lid. To pick it up, some had a single leather glove. Others didn't even care and just used their bare hands. These guys were professional scavengers, and they were competing against everyone. People collecting bones, people collecting rags, even people digging in the mud of the river. But pure finders had their own territory, the streets and parks where London's huge dog population ran completely free. They knew all the best spots and would literally follow people walking their dogs. And get this, they were experts on poop. They knew the best poop came from dogs that ate bones. It produced a dry, limey-looking poop that had more of the magic enzymes. This white pure was worth way more money. The darker stuff was worth less, but they took anything they could find. It was a crazy kind of expertise you only get when your life depends on it. And in their own weird way, they were also cleaning the city streets of something nobody else would ever touch. The pure market. I know this sounds completely made up, but this was a real business. At the end of every day, pure finders would go to the factories and sell their poop by the bucket. And at first, these guys were making crazy money. A good pure finder could make more money than a normal unskilled worker, earning 10 to 15 shillings a week, which was a lot of money back then. But then, everyone wanted to get in on the action. The competition became absolutely insane. The streets were flooded with so many pure finders that the prices completely crashed. And this is where it gets crazy, because the competition led to people cheating. To get an advantage, some pure finders started cutting their product. To make more money, they would find old brick walls, scrape off the white mortar dust, and mix it into their buckets of poop to make it heavier. They were trying to trick the tanneries into thinking they had more of the expensive white pure. It was a desperate scam to make a few extra pennies in a brutal market. This is one of the most insane stories I have ever heard. People did this just to survive. This entire secret economy built on something we throw away was the only thing keeping thousands of people alive. If you think this is as crazy as I do, smash that subscribe button right now. We find weird stories like this every single week, from filth to finery. So let's follow the entire journey from start to finish, because this is wild. Step 1. A pure finder sells a bucket of poop at a factory gate. Step 2. A worker dumps it into a giant tub of water to make a thick, disgusting paste. Step 3. They literally rub this poop paste all over stiff hides with their bare hands and arms. The enzymes do their magic, and the hide becomes super soft. After this, the hide is washed and moved into different vats filled with stuff like oak bark liquid. This is the final step that preserves the leather and gives it its color. The result of this disgusting journey? A piece of perfect, expensive leather. And this is the craziest part. That soft leather glove on a rich lady's hand, that expensive binding on a book, that comfy chair in a fancy club, all of it was only possible because the poorest people in London were collecting dog poop off the street. The peak of Victorian luxury was literally built on the city's most disgusting garbage. It was a hidden cycle where the worst filth created the finest luxury. The end of an era. So what happened? Why aren't people still doing this job? In an instant, they were completely wiped out by one thing: progress. Their end came from two directions at once. First, and most importantly, science. In the late 1800s, chemists figured out how to create the magic enzymes in a lab. New methods like chrome tanning were invented that were cleaner, faster, and way more predictable. Boom. In an instant, nobody needed dog poop anymore. The demand completely disappeared overnight. And at the exact same time, the cities themselves were changing. A huge event called the Great Stink forced London to finally clean up its act. The city hired official street orderlies to clean everything, which the pure finders saw as a direct attack. There were also new laws for dog owners, so the infinite supply of free-roaming dog poop started to disappear. The material they needed was gone from the streets just as the factories stopped buying it. The age of the pure finder was over. So the pure finders weren't just some weird, gross job. They were a critical piece of the entire Victorian economy. Their story is an unbelievable tale of desperation, how cities work, and the insane gap between the rich and the poor. It just proves that the comfortable modern world we live in is often built on top of insane, forgotten labor that nobody ever talks about. The pure finders were a disgusting game changer, turning the absolute filth of a city into the luxury goods of an empire. It makes me wonder, what's the pure finder job of our time? What's the most disgusting job today that secretly runs the world? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And if you learned something insane today, like this video and hit that subscribe button so you never miss another one. Thanks for watching.